Good morning. Welcome to Thursday, almost to the end of the week. And we've certainly got a lot that keeps us running around here. And I know some of you, your world may not be quite as busy as ours, but on the church staff, it's nonstop and a lot of pushing and running. And I was going to read you a little bit about something today, but I was thinking a couple of scribbles I put down here to mention. Sunday morning, I was teaching, I teach a Sunday school class outside, as most of you know, and we'll have a dozen or more people show up and sit in their cars or outside their cars. And I was out there right at the, I want to say at the end of the class, but regardless when, and one of our church members that has been watching online pulled into the parking lot. And I saw him pull up, just stopped right in front of the church, and then weren't there but just for a couple minutes, and pulled out and didn't even park in a real parking place. And then found out later that they'd come. I always wondered if they were okay, and asked around if anybody knew why they were there, but I recognized the car. And someone said they just came by to drop off their offering, but they had been watching the services online. And I thought how faithful the people of God are, and how blessed we are to have the kind of people around us. I've mentioned before, statistics are saying that 1/5 of the churches in America will not ever open again. They'll not be running normal schedules and not even have a church anymore when all the COVID stupid has ended. And we've had people sick before, but usually the vulnerable stay home. The vulnerable are careful where they go and who they hang around. You don't destroy everybody else. And this has been very wrong, in my opinion. I'm not the president or the governor, mayor, so I can have an opinion like anybody else does. But I think it's been very wrong. I think we've destroyed businesses. I think we've ruined many lives. And the number of lives messed up because of no school and no college, all those things, those are just multiplied times more than the number of people that have had any serious illnesses, not just my opinion as well. And I'm certainly not thinking less of those who are sick, and we've had grief. I've been here 39 years as a pastor, and we've been at the hospital a lot, we've been in the mortuary a lot, we've been in the cemetery a lot, and there's a lot of loss of life in this world. We don't get out of this life alive, and it's always sad. This week, one of our dear ladies lost her mother, who's not in the country here, and that's a grief. And one of our men in our church here, he lost his brother, who was a pastor, and that just this week. And there's a lot of grief in this life, but we don't try to destroy everybody. We try to keep as many as we can doing well. But in the midst of all this, I just want to say thank you for your faithfulness. But I want to mention in the next 2 Sundays, we're having a special offering Sunday morning this week, and the following week, Sunday night, just an extra offering to care for our revival speakers. We have the first week in March. I'm going with a group of our teenagers to Kentucky. I think 25 or so young people going to Kentucky to the Young Fundamentalist Conference, and just 4 days of preaching, and then there's activities. Right now the activity is snowball and freezing to death, and hopefully it's will warm up there in the next 10 days before we get to Kentucky. But the Midwest is frozen, and from Texas all the way to Canada is frozen. I've got friends in Calgary, Canada, and it's frozen there. I've got friends in Illinois and Indiana, and just scattered around the country. And this is one time it's good to be in liberal California. But these next 2 Sundays, we're going to have these offerings just to help with the expenses of we have speakers coming in the second week in March for revival meetings. So the first Tuesday to Friday of March, I'll be with some young people and our youth director and some staff in Kentucky at Brother Fugit's conference. And then the second week in March, we have a revival meeting. I'll preach Sunday. Monday night, Corey Mears will be preaching. Corey Mears, phenomenal young man, and has had a 20-year ministry in Fiji, now in Washington. Wednesday night, Kevin Cowling from Mesa, Arizona will be preaching. Thursday night, Mike Johnson from Redding will be preaching. Friday night, Doug Fisher from San Diego will be preaching. And then Saturday, Luis Parada, pastor of a Spanish church in Long Beach, he'll be preaching. Be a great week. Saturday, we preach with the preachings early at 4, and after the preaching, we'll kind of celebrate the revival week with a picnic-style chicken dinner. And then every day, Monday through Friday, at 10 o'clock each day, we're going to have soul winning. And on Saturday, normal soul winning time, we usually meet about 9:45 and get out about 10 to go out soul winning a little bit earlier on Saturday. But in any case, I hope you'll be praying about a revival meeting the second week in March and ask God's blessing. Again, the revival, the preaching is for us. The preaching is to stir us. Wilt thou not revive us again, the scripture says. It's we that need. See, when the people of God get near the God of heaven, everything else in the country will fall to place. The mess we're in America is a byproduct of us being distant from God. And when we get individually near to God, when we get our homes near to God, when we get our churches godly, we've got all kinds of religion in America, but it's pitiful. It's powerless. And we need a stirring of holiness and powerful, spirit-filled churches and families. And when we get our homes and churches right, it will ripple into business, it'll ripple into politics, and there's great things that can be done. And so I want to encourage you to be in prayer for our revival meetings, for our church. And I was thinking about our the things we do for young people. Of course, I do these morning, just brief devotions in the morning. I email also a written devotion out that goes, you can sign up for on our website, and those are emailed out. And sometimes they're similar to the video, but not very often because I can't coordinate that well. So I just say, forget it, I'll do two separate things. But something else that we've done, and maybe some of you that are at home, this would be a help to you. I have for some time taught a junior senior seminar, a philosophy class basically at our high school for the junior and seniors in high school getting ready to go to college or marriage or career or whatever. And we talk about everything from credit cards to communism and socialism versus capitalism. We talk about voting and politics. We talk about dating and marriage. We talk about job choices and college choices and all. It's just philosophies about life. And perhaps that would be something, and we video those. And last year's was the first time we started videoing because we had no school in the spring semester. And we emailed those. We have a link that people that are in class could hook up to those. And so now I find we've got friends out of the area and homeschool friends and stuff, and they're using those as a junior, senior it's not a thing for younger people, but for older teens getting ready to leave. It's good. We talk about auto insurance. And what does one DUI do to your insurance rates? And what does one accident do to your insurance rates? And we talk about scams and internet and the danger of cell phones and all kinds of things like that. So perhaps you've got older teens at home and you'd like to hook up to our philosophy class. If you get a hold of me, if we can work the details out. And I know that I won't be intruding on your pastor's preferences. I always want to respect the pastor of other churches. So if you're a member of another church, I'd have to know that I'm not going to bother him because I'm getting into your life then, and that's important to me that we respect each other's churches. And so anyway, if you're interested in that, get in touch with me at our church office. We could do something with that. And, it has been cold. I've got a daughter in Indiana. She said there's several feet of snow piled up like drifts, several feet. And one of our friends in Texas was saying they've got no power and no water and a little bit of food. And I was thinking they moved there right before, I don't think it was Katrina, but there was a big hurricane came through the Houston area, and it just flooded everything around there. And so they moved from California for the better life in Texas, and they got flooded terribly. And then there was no work for a long time, and now they've got no power and no water. And it's interesting, Texas has got, I read, who knows if it's true, a lot of green power. They're being preserve, save the world. And they said they've got windmills, and but with all the snow and no wind, that the windmills aren't moving, and the snow and the ice pile up. Now the windmills are frozen, and all of their windmills together are putting out about 2% of the power they should be putting out. So there's not power for people. And then they said, and I didn't know this, that any power, gas, oil, electric, whatever, is always a little less efficient in very extreme cold weather. And so their normal production of energy is low by a little bit. It's run about 70%, they said, but the wind power's down about 2%. And we just thank the Lord for those old windmills scattered around there, frozen up. But anyway, I'm anti-green, in case you didn't know that. My thought is, let's enjoy life. Let's be good to people. People matter. You want to preserve people? I'm for that. You want to make no drinking, no smoking, no drugs, all that kind of thing. I'm for taking care of people. But this world is, and I'm not for abusing the world either. But we're going to be in 2 Corinthians 9 in a minute. I'll get myself in trouble with the lovers of the world. You won't catch me littering, and I'm very guarded. I love this world. I love the mountains and the oceans and the trees, but I love the one who made them. I look at the deserts even and marvel at God, that he could make something grow out of that old barren, dry place. It's the God who made him that's amazing. But it's people we're to love. You love God and love people. The world is a tool to use. The world is nothing to worship. A bunch of crazies. They'll get rid of all the people to save the world, and that's pretty stupid. The world is here for people, not the other way around. But we're going to be here in 2 Corinthians in just a moment. But I wanted to mention, I wanted to just throw out, and by the way, the revival, and I was looking at the notes here, I knew there's something else I had down. Our second week in March, Monday through Friday, if you're attending another church, I don't ever want to get you from your church to our church, but you come to our revival meetings Monday through Friday. We'd love to have you here, or Monday through Saturday, if you'd like to join us in that. I wanted to read a quick story just about the cultural changes that take place in our world. This is just a letter from Lew Wallace, and Lew Wallace is the author of Ben-Hur, famous story, and another one, and I can't think of the title. It's about the fall of Constantinople, and I could think of the title if I wasn't looking into a camera. But he was a pretty well-rounded man, and a military man, and a writer, and an artist, and had a pretty colorful life. But he said, I cannot say I was a model boy. As a matter of fact, as I grew up, my love of adventure and mischief asserted itself. I became a terror to the community. Very fortunate for me, I was a passionate reader, and my father had a good library, which I read with the eagerness of an omnivorous boy. When I went away, which I often did. Now, here's the thing, one of the things I want to mention. We are so protective of our kids, and most of us are. We don't let our kids learn. We don't let our kids experience. We don't let our kids do anything. They're always under the watchful care of mom, usually. But I was at a park the other day. We had one of our Saturday Bible clubs, and here's two junior high boys, and their mom came with them to the park so the boys could swing. There's something wrong. Just telling you, let your boys be boys. Let your boys get on a bike, ride to the park, do what they want to do. What if they get in a wreck? All right, they'll have a skinned knee or a skinned elbow or a shoulder, whatever, and go on about their business. But I'm telling you, we're raising a bunch of sissy boys with no dare, no willingness to step out and try. But anyway, all right, back to Lew Wallace. When I went away, which I often did for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, with a dog and a gun on excursions, during which I lived with the farmers who all knew me, a volume of Plutarch was apt to be my companion. That's an author, early, like 3rd century or so, I'm guessing. I've got Plutarch's Lives. But anyway, so he'd take off for a week or two, and he'd go with his dog and his gun. He'd be hunting and wandering, and he'd go down there and he'd stay with a farmer he knew. He'd go down further and stay. And at 10 years old, ready? Now he's at 10. At 10 years old, I made a scholastic experiment, but I was not successful. Here was his experiment. My elder brother was entered at Wabash College, and it occurred to me that it'd be a good thing to join him. So he's 10 years old now. So I joined him by running away. But the studies naturally demanded both more maturity of mind and previous preparation than an idle boy of 10 could possess. And at the end of 3 months, I terminated my academic career by running away again and resuming my nomadic life. Now, I know we want to look after our kids and on and on and on, but greatness is not born in an incubator. And I'm just encouraging you that have children, you better figure out how to let that child develop into something. When I was 16, my father called a halt and a conference. He showed me the 12 years school bills that he had paid for me while I had not yet had a full year's schooling in all. So his dad had been paying for some kind of a schooling. And again, this is mid 1800s. And he had only got a year of the 12 years dad paid for. And my dad said, he had done his duty in providing me these advantages by which I had not profited, and that now it was time to make provision for myself. And this was the beginning of whatever success I may have. And this was a man with a very colorful life, a successful life. And I just want to encourage you that are raising children, especially boys, let them live. Let go of them some, and everybody's got to decide how much. But I remember one Christmas time, I was always looking for a chance for my boys to get out and do things without us. And I remember one Christmas, there was I don't know what it was, but it was a Christmas trolley running through our area. And I don't know, my son might have been 10. And and he had a friend that lived around the corner. And I said, hey, why don't you guys get on the trolley and ride it down to Murrieta, Temecula, the next couple of towns, go do some Christmas shopping, hang out, get some lunch. And I wanted them to go and to get out and face life and have to make the decision of right and wrong, and do I do this or do I not do this? If our children's moral standards are always the decision made by a mom looking over their shoulder, they're making no decisions at all on their own. But anyway, I like that story of Lew Wallace, and he was all over Europe and an ambassador, and had some pretty amazing experiences in life. But in the world's eyes, a man of success, a man of influence, a man who made an impact on the world, but he had some liberty to develop, and I think that's huge. Now, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, before I get to chapter 9, I'll just mention chapter 8, if you want to look in your Bible. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, he's talking the whole chapter, he's talking about money. And he said, in verse 6 of chapter 8, insomuch that we desired Titus, that he, as he had begun, he would finish in you the same grace. He said, these churches in Macedonia were so giving. And Titus had been a part of helping and encouraging them in this giving. He said, I sent them to you in Corinth. I sent Titus to help you learn to give like those churches in Macedonia give. This is all about giving in here. But chapter 9 is where I'm going. And he said, verse 9, chapter 9, verse 1, for as touching the ministering to the saints. Now, this is the people of God looking after the people of God, especially the poor or missionaries. Now, this is not a government. I am against the government taking our money to give it away. It's up to me to give money away. It's up to my organization, whether it be a lodge, people give away money from their civic organization. It's their business. Our church, it's our business to give money away. It's not the government's business. I don't think that's in our Constitution or anything at all in our founders' ideas. That they were pretty strong on get a job and work and support yourself, or get a good church and get friends, and they will help you in your difficult hour. But there is something to be said for the church or Christians helping one another and helping those who are in the ministry. And he says, I know how much I've boasted of you to people. And he goes down a little bit further, and he says in verse 7, every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. Now we're going into March Gladness, and it used to be the March Madness basketball tournament from the NCAA, the college basketball. They call it March Madness, when you get down from all the college teams down to 32 teams, then you get down to the Sweet 16, and then the 8, and then down to the championship. And it's a lot of fun, the tournaments that run on around the country. I don't know what they're doing this year, but we change it to the March Gladness, and we have a Gladness offering. And our March Gladness offering is to redo our PA system and our video system. We're doing so much like this online, missionaries, and we're videoing, live streaming, and there's enough online. We just need to upgrade our speakers and our microphones and the computers that do the processing and all. So that's our March Gladness offering. And I want to say we're looking at $25,000 or something like that. Not an enormous amount. Last fall, we had a special offering for children. We raised $32,000 for children's ministries. And and we have quite a bit of that left. We're using it for children's ministries. But he says here in verse 7, it's not of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. It's you give as God would lead you to give. And I want you to notice 2 verses here. In verse 8, and God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye always, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Now he's talking about giving. The grace of giving. You follow chapter 8 and chapter 9. He talks about this grace, that Titus would complete this grace in you, this ability to give. Salvation, we're saved by grace. That is me getting saved, something I couldn't do on my own. It's Christ who saved me. And then the grace of giving. I'm maybe not a good, generous giver on my own, but the grace of God will help me be what I'm not naturally on my own. And that's this grace of giving. You know, whatever you want to be better at, why don't you ask God to help you? Maybe you're a grump and you need to get a better spirit. And I'll tell you, there's some people that I know have enough health problems and burdens in life. They've got reason to be a little grumpy if, in the world's perspective. But in the divine perspective, we have no reason to be grumpy. And so sometimes you need to wrestle through those things. And so he's talking about this grace, the grace to give. Go to God if you've got a problem with joy. Go to God if you have a problem with worry, or you have a problem with some sin that you want to beat. Go to God and ask him for that grace. Now, so God is able in verse 8 to make all grace abound toward you. Now, look at verse 10. Now, he that ministereth seed to the sower. He's talking about seed being the money that you get to sow. This whole thing, he's talking about giving. The financial benefits we have, that we use those resources to give to others. And he said in verse 10, now he that ministereth seed to the sower, he that gives money, the seed money to the sower, both minister, I better get my glasses so I can read this right, both minister bread for your food and multiply your own seed sown. So he says, he that gives you this seed, this money, he said, I'm praying God helps you take care of your needs, your bread that you need. Obviously, you need to feed your family, and to multiply your seed sown, so that you use this for your family's needs and you use this for others, and you give it to the church or to missionaries or to the poor, whatever. And he said, may God bless your bread, and may God bless your sowing of seed to others. And look at the end of verse 10. And increase the fruits of your righteousness. Now look at that. He says God will give you the seed or the resources, and may God bless you, the one who gets it, and the seed that's sown, and then may God multiply your own bread, and may God multiply the seed that you sow. And in the end of verse 10, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. Do you know, as you give seed, the money, seed money, there is fruit that grows. The fruit of your righteousness. Now, there's 2 things this could be, and I wouldn't fuss with anybody. It could be, number 1, I give to help somebody, and God multiplies it. And it really turns out to be a bigger blessing. I gave him a little, and God multiplied it. It helped him a lot. And I didn't really give him enough to do what it did, but with God's help, it did much. And my sowing of the seed, the righteousness of giving was multiplied, and God made it bigger. And of course, that can go on. Now that person gives to others. And so now the giving is really becoming multiplied over and over. But also, it's the fruit in your own life. Our lay up treasures in heaven. And as God gives me seed, to sow seed for my own bread, and as I give it, and that God would multiply it. And I give to missions, I give to the ministries of the gospel in churches here in America, or whatever it might be. Our Wednesday night others offering, we give to others all the time. Our offering last night was for a camp that's been a great blessing to us over the years. And camps have been hurt. Christian camps have really suffered. They don't have government income, and they don't have state income. And then because of state and county laws, camps have been shut down. Well, how do they pay their bills? How do they pay their staff? And we just have a camp that we've used often, and they've been very good to us. And we took our others offering for them. That's sowing seed. And may God multiply that. But on our behalf, the fruit up in heaven, the rewards, the result of our giving. See, your money's just something to use. It's certainly nothing to worship or hang on to or covet after. It's just a tool to be a blessing to others. Now, look at verse 11. And this is where I was going. Being enriched in everything. So he's talking about verse 10, 11, that God would minister bread for you, multiply your seed sown, increase the fruit of your righteousness, being enriched in everything. That God would give you the resources financially and physically, that he would enrich you in everything. But look at this next word. If you're looking at 2 Corinthians 9:11, being enriched in everything to. There's a purpose for this. To all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. Do you know why God abundantly blesses? Why God multiplies the seed that he's put into our hands? He says in verse 11, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness. And as God multiplies what we have, it's to a purpose, to an end. God doesn't give me things to cling to. He gives me things to be bountiful in my giving to others. He doesn't give me things to be selfish with. He gives me things that those things could be used for others. Not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, a gentleman that had gotten saved and baptized here called me up, said, "Hey, Pastor, I got a new car." Not a new one. It was a beautiful new car, but it wasn't new. 4 or 5 year old car. And he had a car that was very nice. He said, "I wonder if you could use a car. This has only got 50,000 miles on it, and it's beautiful." And I'm telling you that because I got it. And he said, "Would you like a car, or do you know someone?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't take it for me, but I'd take it for somebody else." He said, "Yeah, anybody in your church?" And so I started fishing around and found someone in the church that could use a car. And but it's beautiful little car, and clean, and hardly ever, when you open the hood and the motor's not even dusty. It's been sitting in a garage most of the time. And you see, that man, God increased him or enriched him to all bountifulness. And he could have sold that car, but he gave it away. And I think, and I didn't want to keep it. It had way less miles than my car did. But the blessing that he had by going to somebody in need. And early in our ministry, we were only here, when I was just getting ready to get married, someone gave me a car, and it was beat up. It had been totaled in an accident. Well, we got to California with it, and it was pretty rough. And someone gave us a car. They saw the car I was driving, and they gave us a car. And we drove that for a while, and it was old, but it was better. And then someone came along and said, I went to trade this person didn't even go to our church, but one of their friends went to our church, and they went to a church in Anaheim, and it was a friend of Shirley Carruthers, you that know Shirley. And they said to Shirley, I took my car down to trade it in, and they're not giving me anything for this car, and it's a nice car. I'm not going to let them have my car. I'd rather give it away. Would your pastor like it? And I got I don't know what year, but a beautiful blue Chevy hatchback, like the style maybe of a Chevelle sort of. And I remember my wife and I, Josh had just been born, and we drove Sunday night going up to visit our family, and we stopped along the way. Sunday was a long day, and we drove 2 or 3, 4 hours into the night, and just pulled over and laid the back seat down and crawled in the back of the hatchback and put it down, and we slept there. That was our motel for the night. And I've had 2 or 3 cars given to me along through the years, and nobody ever rolled a new Lexus or Escalade out, and wouldn't need one, want one. But God doesn't give us things to cling to. God gives us things to be bountiful in our giving to others. And I love the thought that you and I can be a help not only on earth, but a help in eternity. Because we've got a missionary right now in a hospital in the Philippines, and here his wife and children are. And what do? And of course, they've got their monthly support coming in, but there's hospital bills. And we've got last night at church, I mentioned a Baptist preacher in Pakistan, and there's not many of those around. He's starting churches, and he's got his own ministry, and he's going to run a little short camp. And he asked me, "Do you have any ideas of what to do at camp?" And I thought, "Oh man, I bet I've been involved in running 70 or 80 camps over the years, and I have all kinds of ideas." But his camp is very short, and I don't know culturally what will work. I've never been in Pakistan. What do I know? But I said, "What's it cost to run that camp?" And about $17 a teenager. And he's not sure how many will come because of finances. He said there are people who are very poor from the different villages, and they're going to have to shuttle them into this camp. And I said, "So what would it cost? Transportation." He said, "Transportation, food, and the use of the camp, about $17 a teenager." And I thought, "Oh, I want in on that. I'll put in $17 toward a teenager in Pakistan going to a Baptist camp to hear the gospel." And he said, "We're hoping." I asked him, "Are they going to be from churches?" Because he said there's quite a few churches he works with, and churches he started, church other people started, but he helps them. And I said, "The churches, are they unsaved people?" And he said, "Well, some from church." He said, "Others not from any church." And he said, "And we're hoping to have some Muslim young people come as well." And I thought, wow, $17 a person to put a young person in camp. What a bargain that we get to be bountiful. And that's what he says there. The end of verse 10, "And increase the fruits of your righteousness, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God." And let's don't love things. Solomon loved things and used people. And we want to love people and use things. And our things are just a tool. And I remember my wife and I, several occasions, have had our family up in Northern California, and a doctor that we know up there. We don't know him well. He's a member of a church that we attend when we're on vacation. And I've preached there on several occasions. And he said, "Hey, while you're here," and Lake Shasta's that big, beautiful lake up there, he said, "Do you want to go out on the lake?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, we might." And he said, "You can use my boat." And I'm thinking, a boat, 15-foot aluminum boat or whatever. This is the biggest boat I've ever driven. It was huge. I was a little bit afraid to launch the boat from the trailer. That's how big it was. Giant. I don't know, 15, 17 passenger boat or whatever. It's huge, huge boat. But he said, "It's just a boat. Don't worry about it. Take it out and have a good time." And but people that use things, use their things. Somebody. One of our men had some people go up to his cabin from our church, go to a cabin in Big Bear during the winter, and then while the family hung out in the cabin during the wintertime, he took the young people, a few at a time, teaching them how to snow ski. And let's just use our lives for others. That's what the Christian life is all about. And things get old real fast. Investing in people never gets old. You never get tired of helping people. You can get physically tired, especially the older you get. But what a great thing to be able to invest our lives in others, and of course investing our money, and thank the Lord and thank you, the many people in our church this whole last couple of years. A lot of unusual pressures in COVID the last year, what it's done to churches. And yet I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's back east in a very small church in Pennsylvania, and he said the bills are paid, finances are together. He said it's they have a lot of older people in the church, and so attendance is not good. But he said the bills are getting paid, and we need to keep our churches alive. And the church is the hope of the nation. We need Jesus Christ and the Bible, and the church is that avenue that brings the gospel and brings it out. So, well, let's pray. Pray for your country. Pray for your state. Pray for your church. And churches, plural, as well as your own church. And then pray for our revival meeting, second week in March. And would you pray God would bless those days, the everyday soul winning and every night preaching. Pray that God would use it for his glory.